Hello and welcome to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast. This show digs into the challenges in growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit. I'm Christeen Era.
And I'm Steve Bousquet. We are the green industry experts in profit, growth, and leadership. Hello, Christeen. How are you today?
I am good. It's been a good week. We are slowly approaching our annual Mind Your Own Business retreat. So by the time this drops, we will be on the other side of it. And so it's a good week. It's ending very well, feeling very productive. How are you doing?
Good. It's been a good week. Yep. Nice and sunny. We had a first really cold, hard frost of the season here in Connecticut, but it warmed up nicely into the low 60s, and it's going to be 70s later this week. My crews and staff are getting a lot of work done. We're getting ready for the GPA retreat in Granville, Tennessee. That's super exciting. I'm doing leadership with CliftonStrengths. I'm so excited about that. And we just had our call to coach Gallup CliftonStrengths with the woman that developed the leadership report with Gallup and CliftonStrengths. She spent a year and a half with her team developing that. It was a really great call with Gallup. So super excited to share that at the GPA retreat.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. I feel like diving into strengths, there's so much you can learn. Not only that improves our business, it really helps us as leaders, and it changes people's lives as individuals too. So I love the concept, and my team as well gets excited about talking about, learning and leading from your strengths.
Yeah, super exciting. So one of the advantages that this team had was half the team that worked on this leadership report, they knew Don Clifton, who created CliftonStrengths. So they had a really strong understanding of his concepts, his work, and the whole vision of it. So listening to that really was inspiring. So it is, most teams love working with it, and because they see how it impacts themselves, their teams, and their companies. And, in 2025, my company, when we're looking for new talent, we're going to be advertising and promoting that we're a strength-based company, strength-based business. And so very similar to the University of West Virginia and how they're a strength-based university. So I'm pretty excited about that because everybody in my company is CliftonStrengths had their CliftonStrengths assessment, and we'll have gone through the coaching. So we're super excited about that.
Yeah, that is exciting.
Today's episode, we're going to be talking about transforming your sales approach. And I was really excited to talk about this because I have been coaching a few people lately, kind of people that called me out of the blue in crisis with their sales. And I asked them about their sales process and listening to what they were doing and just kind of uncovering where their pinch points were, where their pain points were, what was happening based on their sales approach. And we uncovered a few things.
Yeah, and this has been something that's been coming up, in lawn and landscape and trades, is sales. And sales kind of have changed. I think the market has changed. And as people have, I think, even made their sales process, a little bit more lean, there's some things that have fallen out over time that seems to be impacting it. And that's something that has shown up, is that there are some ingredients that they had that were really successful. And as they implemented change and improvements, those ingredients kind of got lost in the weeds of taking their sales approach to a new level. But one of the things that you kind of brought up was the concept of, the lazy sales approach, right? And how technology, as innovative as it can be in our sales process and supporting our sales process and our lead nurturing, it can also create some laziness and some unawareness around, the sales process that that we might be implementing in the company today.
Absolutely. And, I've been in the lawn care and landscape business for 41 years. And so I'm old school. And, some people are going to hear this and say, oh, you don't need to do that. And you don't need to do this. And you probably don't if you're selling and your business is just cruising along. But many people they had a hard time this year. And, they went to that really high tech sales approach and everything's online, everything's digital. So high tech, no touch, right? And they're getting beat out on jobs, they're losing jobs. Their clients who were buying from them for years are not buying from them. They're not getting referrals. They're not getting repeat customers. And so when I looked at their sales process, they were really great at their online stuff. They're really, really good at emailing. But so I found out that they had built up their business for 25 years through relationships, and they were getting all this work from the relationships they had built with people. Right. And when I was talking to them, they were very nice people. And I could tell that, there are people you want to be around, you want to spend time with, and you trust them. They grew up in these communities that they run their businesses. Their kids went to school or go to school with the people that they work for. And, they see them on the street, they see them at the grocery store, they see them at the church, the ball field. So they know them. And then all of a sudden they don't get to see them. They do the estimates online, they email them. So what we found out was when these people are emailing the estimates, it's called, it's the silence, right? The sound of silence is an email. This is what an email sales sounds like, right? Click. The sound of silence, right? There's no selling going on. Yeah. So really emailing should just be used for exchanging information. It should not be used for sale. Anything over $1,000, it should be done in person. It should be done on the phone. It should be done human to human. Now, people will say, I don't have time. Well, exactly, right? We don't have time. But if you are not getting the sales and your sales are down 5, 10, 15, 20, 30% year to date, you have to figure out how to find the time. So if selling is your job and that is the number one thing that you're responsible for in your company, we need to find the time. So either, and time management is not a thing. Priority management is a thing. So I have found, even for myself, I don't ever have a time management issue. I have a priority management issue. So just like profit first, right? What gets done first is the most important thing. Profit first, that's important. If sales are first, that's important. So, and I call it, I get a little frustrated. That's why I call it the lazy sales, because I don't want to go see the people. I don't want to take the time. You get used to just clicking on sitting in the comfort of your air-conditioned office. And I love all the excuses I get. Well, it's 25 minutes over there. Well, I'm thinking, that's $25,000. Well, it's this and that. And it's just one of those things that in the trade business and when you're selling, it's part of showing up and being there. And I'll get into why that's so important.
Yeah. And I think that there's a fine balance, right? Because I'm all about innovation and automation. I love that. It creates capacity for our team, but there's a balance between technology and people. And there's certain things in our processes that we should automate and, create efficiency in. And then there's other things that are really important for that human touch. And I think some of the things that's contributed to this over the years, and, this is just my observation in talking and working with clients, is one, there was a period of time where sales changed and we couldn't do face-to-face. We couldn't do in person, right? What was also happening during that time, and this was during, COVID, is people were investing in their living spaces because they existed in their living spaces 99% of the time, and they wanted to make it better. So there was less, in-person contact happening. And then at the same time, it was, we need to level up our process and in our software and figure out tools that are more effective, because we can't just hand somebody a paper contract anymore. We have to deliver it digitally. So I think there's two factors that contributed to this change. And some of the things that we're seeing is just the outcome and the lack of awareness of, oh, this did change and this used to work. Let's get this back in. We don't have guardrails on this anymore. So, getting that human contact in. And I've also seen in some situations, the mindset of people in sales have changed to where for a long time it was really easy. So sales kind of became like this low-hanging fruit, and it was really easy to get these closes. And it's not as easy anymore. But they don't remember before that time when it was really hard and you had to put in the work. So I'm seeing a few things show up. I'm seeing, mindset show up, a change in the market and shift, and then innovation that business owners have implemented that then changed kind of, how they function. And then they forgot like what they did really, really well.
Right. And some people will sell just by sending emails, and it will work for a very select portion of the companies. And if that's the only way that you can sell, you can also just, hey, get on the phone with them, and then while you're on the phone with them, send the email, have them open it up and review it while you're on the phone with them. That way you can hear their voice, the inflection, answer questions. So there is a way to do it, but it's not the very best. So if it's the only way that you have to do it, then you can do that. But, the value of face-to-face in a conversation at someone's house, you remember, this is for residential sales and even commercial sales, right? So residential sales, when we go to someone's house, there's so much going on at that visit, right? First off, we want to show up on time. And the reason we want to show up on time is because if you have a husband and wife, or a wife and a wife, a husband and husband, whatever the relationship is, even if it's a mom and, she's a widow and the son's there, right? They've told somebody else in their life that somebody's coming to the house, and there's stress. Somebody they don't know or somebody they know is coming to their house. This is where they live, right? This is the most intimate part of their life. This is their space. This is where their kids play, their grandkids play, their wife, their husband. This is their home, right? So by showing up on time, it's very respectful, and it reduces their stress because now they know you're there when you said you're going to be there. It's not about you. It's about them. So if you're late, right? So if I call up and I have an appointment with a painter, and I tell my wife he said 6:00, and now it's 6:20. He's late. So my wife's already thinking I already chose the wrong painter because the guy can't show up on time. Now I'm not doing my job. Mm-hmm. So we're already not on a good foot, right? So showing up on time already reduces the stress. It strengthens the relationship. Now there's tension between me and my wife. So if you're the guy who showed up late, you're the one who created the stress between me and my wife. How much do I like you? How much can I even trust you, right? So we're creating a whole different relationship between people when we show up late. So it's not about us, the landscaper. It's about the people who are dealing with that relationship, right? So that is the first part of that. And then the second part is just showing up as a miracle for half the time, right? And then being curious, right? And having a sales process and telling them what's going to happen, right? What's going to happen on the first appointment, how the system goes, and sharing that with people. And then sharing success stories and asking questions about why you're there and doing active listening. And talk about them and why they're doing this, and not about, a lot of sales will be about, this is my company. You can share success stories about your company and people in that community, but you don't want to talk too much about yourself. You definitely want to let them know that you're there for them. So the other thing is, at that appointment, if it is a 2-step appointment, if it's a 1-step appointment and you can close on that first sale at all, you want to sell it then, right? If at all possible, you always want to sell on that first sale. So any kind of lawn maintenance, lawn applications, maintenance stuff, small landscape jobs, you should be able, anything under $5,000, you should be able to sell on that first job, right? First spot. If it's a bigger job, you got to go do a design. You have to come back. There's no way to sell on the first one. You always want to schedule the second appointment at the first appointment. And here's why. We go back to the stress. So I'll call the painter, and he's he comes to my house. He's on time. He comes and he says, okay, Steve, this is how much you showed me the house. And I'll write up a quote and I'll get back to you. And my wife says, what did he say? And I said, well, he'll get back to me. When? I said, well, he said he'll get back to me. So a week goes by. My wife goes, did the painter get back to you? Nope, not yet. I'll call him. So I call, leave a message. 3 days later, he gets back to me. I'm still working on it. 2 weeks go by. Mm-hmm. No estimate, right? So now my wife's thinking, oh, great. Steve didn't do his job again. So now this guy's making me look bad. I don't want to hire him now. So even if it's like, it can't be a week, it's 2 weeks. If he said to me, I'm going to be back, 2 weeks from now with this quote, my wife's not asking me, when is he going to get back to me? I don't have to chase him around with a phone call. And when he shows up on that date with that quote, I look like the hero. Yeah. So it takes all the stress away. It's so professional. And if you do this, you will likely be the only contractor they ever dealt with that set the second appointment at the first appointment. Here's the wonderful thing about it. It's free. We don't have to buy another software program to do this. We don't have to buy another app. We just have to set the second appointment. And what it did for me when I did this was it created a timeline that I had to get these estimates done. And I knew when I had to get them done. And when I showed up, people were ready and waiting. It actually increased my closing ratio by about 10% because the anticipation of me showing back up with the quote and the proposal, they were more ready to buy than me randomly calling up and saying, oh, randomly, I have your quote ready. There was no anticipation. I caught them off guard when I did that. So now there was all this anticipation of this meeting. And so no stress, higher anticipation, higher close ratio. It was no cost, additional cost. So it completely changed the sales experience. And we ended up getting more repeat jobs because the experience was so much more pleasurable.
Yes. And I myself have recently been through, a kitchen remodel, right? So we dealt with several tradespeople. And before that, we went through, when we did some things to our backyard, like the year before, it was like our patio and some of our landscape and putting in a new, walkway and things like that. And initially my husband started dealing with that project, the outside. And the same things would happen where I'm like, well, when did they say they'd get back to you? What did they say? How did this go? What do you mean you don't know? Okay, well, I'll call them. And it got to the point where he was so frustrated with contractors that he's like, I don't want to deal with contractors. And I'm like, I work with contractors all the time. Like, that's the industry. It's like I've been helping people in the trades for pretty much my whole career. So I'm like, I get them and I know, kind of what to look for. So I have this, this inside kind of language with them. But at the same time, like, I experienced my own challenges of, it started happening, what was happening to him, happening to me. And then I found that I was the person that had to field it. Like, even yesterday, we had the contractor come and do the finish work on our cabinets. And he said, well, what time are they going to be here? Right? Because he's navigating work. He's navigating the dogs. He's navigating the kid who's on, break. He's trying to navigate my work schedule. What time are they going to be here? And I was like, well, they're always here between 8 and 9. Okay, did they say they're going to be here between 8 and 9? And I was like, well, let me confirm. I have not heard anything otherwise. So then I had to go through and contact people and confirm when they were going to be here. So he had all this anxiety, which gave me stress, one more thing for me to manage. So it's just the lack of communication, the lack of confirmation. Like, the email said one time, the text message said another. I'm like, I don't know. I have the guy's direct number. I'll just text him. And he was like, nope, here it is. This is when we're going to be there. But that lack of communication and lack of transparency, it creates a lot of angst in the relationship. And I will totally agree, if somebody does not show up or they reschedule the call, right there, my husband goes, "This is a bad sign." And in my mind, I'm like, he's right. It is a bad sign, right? So it automatically breaks the trust. And we also feel like our time isn't respected. And, that's something else to where we're very respectful of other people's time. If we set up something, we're ready for them to come to our home. We're ready to show them what they need to know. We even ask, is there anything you need ahead of time? So we expect, from our values, the same thing. And that will tell us, is this a good relationship or not?
Yeah. And just being at people's houses. Now, if we're selling commercially, it's interesting because they have a boss that they have to answer to usually if they're hiring you, right? So there's two things. We always think that they want the cheapest, lowest price. But in reality, they want the value and they don't want to get in trouble because they don't especially the landscaper, they don't want everybody who's driving into work to see a bad job. Like their butt is on the line, right? So if the place looks like crap and they hired the landscaper, they're not paying for it, right? That money's not coming out of their pocket. So they want someone that's going to protect them and make sure that they look good. The purchasing agent, the plant manager, whoever's doing the hiring. So even though we're like, oh, we think, it's all based on price, it's really on who can make me look good and still give me a good dollar value. So that's really what we have to focus on and make sure that they understand, we understand them. Because they don't want to have everybody going, oh yeah, sure, Steve, you saved X amount of dollars, but look how there's grass in the parking lot. There's grass all over my car, right? I got a chipped window. The flowers are dead. This looks awful. Or snow plowing, you can't get in the parking lot. It only has to happen once when someone can't get to work in a parking lot, or there's a shift change and people can't get in and out, when the dollar that they saved was not worth it. So you can always speak to that. And at people's homes, it's interesting. It's such an intimate space. And we kind of forget that, how important it is and how personal it is to people, because we're working in people's yards all the time. This is why another thing that's really important is making sure that our crews are really branded up, right? We want to make sure that when any of our clients or any of the neighbors look out the windows, they have to know who's in the yard, right? So make sure that the logos are big enough to read from a distance on the trucks, the trailers, on the shirts, the sweatshirts, t-shirts, whatever our crews are wearing, because it just lowers that stress. It might be, and people have argued with me over this. They're like, I don't like to wear this and that. I'm like, I understand that. You do that at home, but it's not about you. It's not about me. It's about my client and making my client feel comfortable and their neighbors feel comfortable, because I want to be hired again and again and again and again. And we've been in business for 41 years. 5% of landscape businesses make it to 40 years. So 95% don't, right? So I don't wear big logos on my shirts at home. That doesn't make sense. But I want, if someone's working in my yard, whether it's the chimney cleaners or the oil deliveries, my wife better be able to look outside and see some bearded guy walking across the front lawn and know who it is, right? So that is really, it's a huge important. I know most people do that, but it's really, if you're doing that, kudos to you, because it's such a high value. And even though it sounds simple, when you're doing that, you're really adding value to the experience for your customer.
Core Growth Strategies provides business growth management solutions through cloud accounting, bookkeeping, and strategic business consulting programs. Our team works with small businesses in lawn care and landscape and trade industries throughout the U.S. We increase our clients' business acumen by creating business performance transparency through financials and strategic advisement based on industry best practices and benchmarks. Our experienced team provides support, guidance, and coaching, thereby allowing our clients to connect with viable data and discover their own solutions. Core Growth Strategies programs and services are designed to get your business from where it is now to where you have always dreamed it to be. Visit us today at coregrowthstrategies.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't miss our exclusive limited time podcast special. Just mention promo code GPA Pro to any member of our team during your complimentary consultation, or enter the promo code on our site when you sign up for one of our online programs. That's promo code GPA Pro.
Yeah, and I want to add something to this because it's something that I experienced myself, and I wasn't asked, but I did tell because I have, high communication, and I'll just tell people what I think they need to know in situations. So one of the things that we were not, asked about when people were coming into our home or doing our yard is, hey, what kind of things do you need to navigate when we're coming to your home or to your property, right? And people live very busy lives. And I think that this would be a question that could be asked during the sales process of, if I'm coming to your home, what are some of the things, to do this job? What are some of the things that you're going to have to prepare for? And one, it could raise their awareness because maybe they're not thinking about it. But two, it also raises the awareness of the company that's providing the service. People have really busy lives. They have pets. They have kids. They have work. A lot of people work from home. Maybe they have an elderly parent that is living in their home and they're used to, peace and quiet and things like that. So being aware of what your customer needs to prepare for, like, oh, well, my dogs are usually outside. So I need to make sure that when you guys come, I need to know so I could bring my dogs inside to keep them safe. Or in our situation, people were coming into our home. Well, we have puppies. Puppies eat everything. So every time we had a contractor come into our home, our old dogs were fine. They would just hang out and want some attention and then leave them alone after 5 minutes. But the younger ones, they have no boundaries, at this point, and they eat everything. So we had to put them in a different space the whole time the contractor was here. And I don't think that they were aware of that until I told them, hey, we can't let our dogs out into this space because they will eat anything you drop on the floor, which is not safe for them, and we need to figure out when we can bring them through this space so they can have potty breaks. So there's certain things that our customers have to navigate when we're coming into their home, because it's going to disrupt, which is stressful, their day-to-day living, even if it's a recurring service, knowing my lawn application guy knows I have a dog. And I know on these days that I can bring my dog inside and keep them safe. Or my dog's cool with them and I know that they're going to lock the gate. So sharing that type of information during a lead process, with us looking at a potential sell, I think could just level it up on you caring and being concerned about, hey, how can we best work together?
Right. Yes, absolutely. Just that communication. So if you're not super comfortable with meeting people in person and doing sales face to face, there's training for that. You can get training, you can get help with that. But what I was kind of astounded with, and this is what led to today's podcast, is I was being called by people asking for help that were really comfortable with it, but they fell into this technology trap. Mm-hmm. So if you are comfortable with meeting with people and you fall into the technology trap, how do we use technology, right? So if we're going to meet with people, you can use technology as a follow-up. So after you meet with people, you can send a thank you email with another copy of the contract. You can also send a written thank you note, right? And you can also make phone calls. You can send text thanking them. You can send other information. Maybe they want more details. So one of the things if they have strategic thinking, or I call them, squares, they just always want more information about whatever activity you're doing. You can send them information links. They love, more information links about the details and the specs. So That's how, when you were going to use emails, use it to convey and transfer information, but not to close the sale. You can also use technology for videos. Videos are a wonderful way to use technology. Hey, I'm going to send you a link for a video of a job that we did very similar to yours, and it walks them through the job, the before and after. That's a great way to share it. It's such a positive way. Testimonial videos are a great way to use technology also. Texting reminders are a great way to use. Hey, just to remind you, we have our appointment today at 2:00. It's going to take an hour. I'm going to be there on time. And I'm looking forward to meeting you. Right. So there's a way to use technology to enhance our sales, but not to be our salesperson.
Yeah. And even using it to let them know what to expect during the consultation, call or in-person appointment with them, letting them know like, hey, here's the video. Thanks for setting your appointment. Here's the video on how our consultation is going to go. And just kind of walk them through that, and resending it to them when you're saying, hey, I'll see you later today, just in case you didn't have time or missed it. This is what you can expect from my visit today. So I think, telling customers what they can expect before you even arrive to their property is going to put them at ease. And it will also create that, connection and trust ahead of time too.
Yes. All the communication is very helpful. And certain people, you can over communicate and you can under communicate. And there's a fine line between the two. And if you're paying attention, you'll feel it, you'll hear it, right? And so one of the people I just worked with, she did a quote for a wedding. It was for this a long-term customer's wedding. Her daughter was getting married. And it was in the backyard, and she wanted hydrangeas that were going to match the daughter's dress. So she went there when the customer wasn't home. She typed up the whole thing, and she emailed it. There's the sound of silence, right? And she didn't hear back. And then like 3 weeks later, she checked back, and she went with somebody else. She got a cheaper price. So when I talked about it with her, I said, so if you had been there and you were like, okay, I can just imagine the day of your daughter's wedding, you're looking down the aisle and there's your daughter and your husband's going to walk her down the aisle. And there's that row of hydrangeas that I handpicked and made sure every one of those was in full bloom to match the colors of your daughter's wedding selections, right? And there's the photographer and the videographer and catching you and the daughter and the husband, right? There's the sale. It's not click and silence. You have to sell now we're making memories. We're making moments. We're living the life that they invited us into their personal space to make a memory. And we clicked off a lazy email, right? That's just not honoring our sales craft, and it's not honoring their invitation that they invited us in to share their life with them, right? So, and it's so powerful when someone invites you into their life, onto their property to share their life. Say, hey, help me celebrate my daughter's wedding. And we click off an email quote instead of going there and sharing the vision and the mastery that we can help them create and live. That's a different experience. So what an opportunity that was missed. So I really invite anyone who's listening to this to step into that invitation when people invite us onto their property to share their lives and sell it in a way that can improve that for them and really honor that. And just enjoy it. We spend so much time learning about plants and people, and it's such an honor to be, you're part of their daughter's wedding, right? Most people have 1, 2, 3 kids. Maybe they have 1 or 2 daughters. This is it for them. This is a big deal. And they invited us to be part of it. So that's what I mean. Like, we really need to understand it's bigger than just 50 hydrangeas. It's not about the plants, right? It's about the invitation they extended to us to even be part of this project.
Yeah. And I know a lot of small businesses are putting so much more effort into their marketing these days with their website and their social media postings and online videos and things like that. And I think this as well gives them the opportunity to, express the value, right? A lot of the value that we bring as businesses is going to be demonstrated in how we show up, how we communicate, what our process is, right? Just our actions can speak a lot about our value and what makes us different from the competitor. So there's tons of opportunities there. But the other opportunity is when you're meeting them in person and there's a few little things that you can share that isn't shared through how you show up and what your actions are. So I think that that's a huge opportunity, like you're saying, Steve, like, create the narrative, show up and connect and be like, okay, so why do you want this project? What does this look like for you? And connecting in that way, but it's going to give you that opportunity in person to really show, hey, this is what makes us different. And we build trust out from the start. And, this is how we do things. And some of the things you might be sharing that are already very apparent in your process, but the fact that you're connecting the words with the actions is going to be even more powerful.
And it's interesting. There was an economic study, and I just was reading this last weekend. So there are three offerings, right? You have the high end, the middle, and the low end. Where people get most excited is the low end because they got a deal and they tell people about it and they share it. They got a bargain and their endorphins just shoot off and they want to share that. And it's like, oh my God, I got a deal. Look at this bargain I got. I'm so smart. I'm so awesome. At the high end, they're like, oh my God, I paid so much for this. This is so unique. This is so amazing. This is so awesome. In the middle, the value one, yep, I got what I paid for. The middle gets the least endorphin rush. It gets the least referrals. It gets the least renewal. It gets the least rebuys. So the high end and the low end is where like the most business is done because it just excites our brains. So once we get in the hierarchy of needs, once we get past that, food, shelter, warmth, once we get past that level, it's really that high end and low end. So, being that high end, especially if we're in lawn care landscape, we can be that, but you need to sell that and you can't click that sale. You have to go sell that. And I know people that are listening to this are passionate about the green industry, right? And have the skill and talent to sell it. So they get these nice software and it puts it in a nice package and they can click it away and then they can not go see anybody. But we're all better than that. We all want more than that for ourselves and our customers. So we can just do way better. And yes, I'm imploring you to go out and do that and just don't be a victim to that fancy software to click and sell. So blending this together, right, between the personal and the email and the text and all the high tech with the video, the younger people might be better at it than like I'm 60. Maybe there's people in the millennials that are really good at it, but you have to do what works for you and what your strengths are. So, match up with your strengths and what you can do, but do as much as you can in person and, use as much as you have to for tech. But if you do use tech, still, they call it high tech, high touch, right? So the more tech you do, the more high touch you have to do. So some of the things that we're doing as far as like high touch is sending, and this is a big hit. We have a chocolatier in Connecticut called Munson's Chocolate. And when people buy a landscape job over $5,000 and up, we send a really big box of thank you chocolates. I think it's like 36 chocolates. And if it's under five, like I think our minimum is like 3,000. So 3,000 to 5,000, we'll send the 18-piece chocolate. The thank you notes that we get on the chocolate boxes, and when we get referrals, we send chocolates. So huge thank you. We don't send a gift certificate or a card to go to coffee, or we don't give them a job to go do something. Yeah. That's one of the things, even though gift cards are great, you just gave somebody a job. to go do something, go spend some money, go out somewhere, go do something. When they get that box of chocolate, it's gorgeous. It is, they love it. So I would really kind of implore you, if you're going to thank your customers, don't give them a job. If we are high executing strengths, we like jobs. We like to go do things. But if we're not high executing strengths, we don't appreciate getting jobs to do. We want relationships. We want influencing. We want strategic thinking. So, don't give those other three strengths a job.
Yeah, we do something similar when we sign a new client, and ours is a long-term relationship. We send a welcome gift to them, and it has several things. One of our clients actually recorded unpacking their welcome gift because they had never gotten anything like that from working with a service professional, and went through it all, which I thought was really nice, and I was surprised to see it. But we send them, things that are nice, but also that's going to support them in working with us. So, we send them some books for business. We send them some goodies, from us, and also some chocolates and whatnot. So that's something I think it really can have a huge impact is after you start that relationship with that customer and you make that sell and you're starting to deliver services to them, is sending them something afterwards to basically say, hey, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. We've also talked to clients about people that do go to in-home visits to do sales, and just kind of like, as we show up to people's houses as individuals, right? Typically we bring kind of like a little thank you, right? Like typically I could say like, oh, it's a bottle of wine or something like that. We don't want to do that, but just a little, thank you for inviting me into your home. Like, a little, I appreciate your space type of thing. And we've talked to clients about that they've had great success of bringing just a little something to the person's house, just as like a gift of appreciation for welcoming them into their home. And that has had a huge impact on, just starting out that relationship before the sale even happens.
Yeah, there's a book, Giftology, and Joey Coleman wrote a book, Never Lose a Customer Again, and he talks about giving the gifts. I think that's kind of where we got some of the chocolate. I remember the unboxing, the video, your client was literally giddy as they were opening up that gift box that you had sent them. And it doesn't take much. I think we buy these chocolates, like a box full of each size. And then as they come in, we send them out, and people request them annually now. We send them out because the lifetime value of a client is really what we're talking about, right? So if your average lawn care application customer is $1,000, they stay 6 to 7 years. The value of that customer is $6,000 or $7,000. Our average landscape customer buys 4 jobs over about a 12-year period with an average job of $5,000 to $7,000. Let's call it 6. Mm-hmm. So that's $24,000, right? We can spend $150 or $200 on chocolates. Right. Now, some of these landscape jobs, we have customers that have spent $250,000. So we can spend a couple $1,000s on Love You gifts, right? So we're literally this year we're putting $10,000 of our marketing budget just in a Love You account that we're going to just spend on gifts for our clients have been with us in our giant pumpkins, and just to pay a little bit more attention to them, and to thank them more for continually supporting us decade after decade after decade, because they give us referrals, and 70% of our landscape work, and we're going to do almost $1.5 million in landscape installs, is from existing customers, repeat. So that says a lot. They literally will hire our team just because they like working with them, because we make it easy, and it's pleasant. But when 70% of your work is coming from repeat and renew, the same. I don't even know how they can keep doing landscaping. We're ripping out old landscaping, redoing it in these yards, right? Making their yards bigger to do more landscaping. It's mind blowing. And now we've done almost 6,000 landscape projects in the past 40 years, or over 6,000 landscape projects, which is amazing. So, taking care of our customers and they take care of us. And that's really what it's about.
Yeah. So some tips I just kind of want to share that we went over today is, utilizing our technology to help us with that personalized communication, whether it's your CRM system, text messages, personalized email that you're sending out to interact with customers. And then the other one we talked about was video content. So we could utilize video content to send, messages, what to expect, what this looks like, what comes next, things like of that nature. The face-to-face meetings, how valuable that is. So looking at your, lead and sales and close approach to figure out what can you automate, so you're automating smartly when it comes to innovating and with the technology in your business. So those kind of routine tasks and seeing where you could put that personal touch, even though they are automated, but then seeing where do you need that personal, face-to-face interaction, and what does that look like, and making sure that you build that into your sales process. And then the other thing I would say that's highly valuable is, no matter how long you've been doing this, is to practice, right? Steve has talked about practice a lot. We practice things. We help each other kind of through conversations and stuff, but practicing, especially if you're implementing or changing your current sales process, make sure everybody's on the same page. Make sure that they have the content that you want them to share when they're visiting that customer's home, and make sure everybody's consistent across the board, because we've even worked with clients to where they've gotten feedback and said, well, we don't want to work with you because of the salesperson, the way that they showed up. And once they dug in, they realized that salesperson was not doing the same sales process as the rest of the company, which then cost them a lead. And who knows how many other leads before somebody actually said something to them. So, bringing your salespeople together and making sure it's consistent. Again, in business, consistency is key.
And I will share, this year has been a struggle for some companies around the country, but other companies have grown, anywhere between 5 to 30% this year. And dialing in your sales process is a big part of that. If you kind of had a struggling year, or you're trying to dial in your sales process between the technology and personal, there is the Gallup CliftonStrengths sales report, right? And it helps you match up your Clifton strengths in selling and how you can best sell and match that up. So maybe, everyone can take a sales class or sales coaching, but it's telling you to sell like this, where the Gallup CliftonStrengths sales report says, based on your strengths, this is the best sales approach for you. And this is some weaknesses or some kind of danger points you should watch out for based on your strengths. But these are your strengths, and really how to step into your strengths and become the best salesperson possible. And it just, once you read that report, you're like, okay, I can do this, because it's all about your strengths and who you are every day. So if you are interested in that, reach out to me at greenprofitacademy.com, and we can get you started on that. It definitely is eye-opening for people who take the CliftonStrengths and with their sales report. So thank you very much for listening today. And I know I was a little bit preachy, because I just don't want people to struggle when you don't have to. And as much as I love technology, I don't want it to cripple any of us. So thanks for listening, and we look forward to you joining us on the next podcast. Thanks for listening to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast,
the show that digs into the challenges of growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit.